What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Weekly. It is myself and Cat Comic Uno. Brant will be
Hello.
on. He's just running a few minutes late. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy this episode of Comic Book Weekly. We got a lot of stuff to talk about this week when it comes to news and the comics, and of course, the main topic regarding Gang War First Strike and Madame Masque possibly being the new Kingpin of crime. But we will talk about that after the news. So the first thing that we're going to do, of course, is the news. So obviously, Kat is going to be the one that starts off the news. Hopefully, everybody had a good week. New comic book day tomorrow. And just want to welcome some of the people that are on right now. So we got Get the Key Comic, who is on, gives us a thumbs up, and I am 137HM is on, and then we have Steve, who says hello. We have Tevia, who says hello, and we have Film Guru, who says hello as well. So welcome to the few viewers that we have right now. Obviously, as time goes along, they'll be built up. So might as well take it away, Kat, and let's kick it off with the news.
Yeah, so let's start talking about some media news first, which is Godzilla King Kong trailer, which is interesting because there's a new, and Brant came on right actually when we literally just started. So that is very good news. We're going to have to change the background a little bit. So Brant will play around with that as he goes on. And I think he's in the background. So he's coming on. But the Godzilla trailer, there we go. He's playing perfect. You literally came on right as the first news piece was starting, which is
cool.
Godzilla and King Kong trailer. And what I was going to say, I think it's interesting because the new Godzilla film came out and it was not on my radar at all because I don't really care about Godzilla. But this movie's getting really good reviews, so I probably will go see it next week.
It actually looks good. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if you saw the trailer, and I don't.
Well, there's another new movie. So this is Godzilla King Kong, but then there's a new one that's out right now, like Godzilla New Moon, and it got like really good reviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this trailer one, based off of our news, I watched that trailer, and it looked pretty badass, though, to tell you the truth. So, it's like I like Godzilla movie. I like Godzilla, and I love King Kong, and they all look cool. But I never actually go to the movie theaters to see them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'll see it when it comes on when it streams on TV, and I just never get around to doing it, and I should, because I do like Godzilla. I think he's pretty badass.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the other thing, I don't know if we wanted to talk about this. I know Brant didn't mark off the trailer. So, but Spider-Man Noir is moving forward at Amazon. So some of these Sony shows are happening. I know Silk was supposed to be a show, but I guess Spider-Man Noir is like the first one of all these.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that, but sure. That'll be interesting. Any other thoughts on that, or else move on to some comic news?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything special about that, right?
No, not too special. All right, let's start talking about Miles Morales is getting an arch enemy. So I feel like every year they mention he's getting arch enemy of some sort, and it doesn't really stick.
Well, it's actually the enemy that was introduced in the beginning of the run, which was the
that's cool.
character. Yeah.
Rabble,
so that's going to be his arch nemesis. And I don't know if it's during Gang War. I forgot what the article said, but if it's during Gang War or right after it, she is making her return back. So it looks like she's going to have some major beef with him, and it's just going to be this thing, which I actually like her as a character, and I just feel like he needs some kind of major arch nemesis. So I don't know, why not have her be that, to him.
I mean, it looks like it's going to tie into that 300th issue, which is 18. So we just read 12, so it's 6 issues from now. So it's probably after Gang War.
Which we should mention, there's a 300th issue also coming out for Miles Morales.
Yeah, 300 issues of Miles. Not a whole lot to say about that, but I do like Rabble as a character. This is the character that he took her place at the school without realizing, and she held a grudge and developed these abilities or skills or whatever. And so it's good. I love the new characters that they've created in this run, and she's a perfect villain for him, I think. So excited to see Miles' Rogues Gallery grow.
So speaking on villains, we got this new DC villain for I think it's going to be in Beast World, which we'll talk more about. But Tom Taylor is creating this villain, kind of has a She-Hulk vibe to the character, and their name is Apex Ava, springing out of Titans Beast World, and of course, will connect to Nightwing. So it's definitely a Tom Taylor character.
Yeah.
I was like, I honestly, you guys were on the show the last time you were on. I wasn't on the show, and you talked about Nightwing, and I watched it, and you guys like Nightwing, and I did not
is
like
strong. I think
it
is better than it's been.
I did not like it. I'm just like, why is he? I just can't stand the outfit. I'm like, why do we have to have the chest exposed? Like, I want to know now. Like, it's sitting there. It's weird. It's like, does he shave his chest? They get laser hair removal. Like, it's just like, it's so clean, you know. And
he definitely gets a laser hair. He doesn't want to deal with that again.
He's like a pirate, and just like, yeah, the girlfriend got stabbed or whatever it was, but I was like, what has happened to Nightwing, you know? And after reading that book, I'm like, I'm gonna drop it. And now this new character is making an appearance, and now I want to read it. So Nightwing is so much the book that I want it to be good. I want to really like it, but I want to drop it at the same time. But now there's a reason for me to buy another issue.
I think it's a tough series because it's not one that I think
it's not horrible.
It's horrible. Exactly. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. It's like, it's not a horrible book. So you're like, oh, I want to continue reading it because the art is amazing and the writing's fine. But then it's like, you're right. There's never an issue where you're like, whoa, this is as good as that beginning of the run, because again, nothing happens. But the reason I give a little leeway for this arc in particular, because at least it's something different. I'm just interested that they're not doing the same story of the Titans or Heartless. I'm just so tired of it. And they're exploring a side of Nightwing that we haven't seen in a while. So do I love it? Do I even like it? No. But do I appreciate it? Sure.
Shouldn't it like connect to Beast World though?
You know, I'm glad it doesn't.
It's just so, I don't know. Sometimes when you do have an event, and I like how it's just kind of, I like the main event, but there's all these crossover. There's all these other tie-in books to it. Wouldn't you think that Nightwing like would connect to that, since he is the leader of the Titans and he's the major player of the book?
The funny thing is, for a few issues there, Nightwing became a Titans book, and then all of a sudden he's just back to doing his own thing. Just randomly.
It definitely doesn't have much continuity. I don't know what this, like, it's very hard to tell what this, like, if you had to give an elevator pitch of what Nightwing is, I could not, because like some issues it's like, oh, it's the Bat family, and then other issues like, here's his ex-girlfriend, and other issues he has a sister, and then others they don't mention it. So
it's, I mean, I think Tom Taylor plans a little bit better than we may be giving him credit for, but it feels like at the moment, like with Nightwing specifically, it feels like he's got a notebook and he's like, okay, here's this paragraph, here's this paragraph. Oh, let me build an issue out of this one. Oh, this one sounds good this week or this month, and then let me do this one. And then well, I need to go back to this. So let's go. It just feels so all over the place. I know it's probably not, but it feels that way. So I don't know.
No, I very much agree with you on that. And no, it was interesting. We talked to Mike through our messenger after the show, and you were like, oh, it's so interesting that week. I just disagreed with a lot of your picks, and then you also disagreed with mine. It would have been a very interesting week.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just like, I was listening to the show while I was driving my daughter to school, and I'm just like, oh, really? I'm like, oh my God. It's just so funny how different we were. And that doesn't happen very often.
No.
You know?
It's very interesting how, I think, again, it either bleeds to that we've been doing this for a long time, so like our thoughts kind of bleed together, or it's that we all have similar tastes, and I think that's mixable.
I can't say this. When I was putting together that top 5 that night to send you the images, and I put Holy Roller as my number 5, for some reason, I think I put Hulk to the side and I forgot to include it. Because you made a mention. I'm surprised, like, Hulk is not in Mike's top 5,
Especially like the
that
Ghost Rider
would've-
stuff.
that would
Yeah.
have replaced Holy Roller, at least at the number 5 spot. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes more sense. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I like Holy
Yeah, it
Roller. I'm glad you liked it a little bit more than us. But I was like, yeah, Hulk, come on. Hulk's
Hulk
always
is a
solid.
favorite book of mine. Yeah.
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 It's interesting. I'm doing my newsletter now for my comic stuff. And I'm this coming week is gonna be the top 10 comics of the year. And it's really interesting to see the mix match. And I'm sure we'll do something on our show too about like favorite comics of the year. So look forward to that, guys. We just have to pick a date for it. But yeah, no, I was making it. It's really interesting to see like how many different publishers are in this year. It's like, oh, and I'll spoil it a little bit, but Hulk's in it, of course. Like I really liked Hulk, but then there's a DC book, and then there's like a Boom book, and I'm like, oh, that normally doesn't happen. Usually it's like one company is really dominating. You're like, oh, look at all this Image books, look at all these Boom books. But this year was such an interesting year where I just feel like everyone had something interesting and nobody dominated. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. Like, I don't think anyone overperformed, but I also don't think anyone underperformed this year. It's just kind of very like flatline.
I think it's a good thing because it just shows you that you don't have to rely on Marvel or DC anymore for good comic books. It's just it's spread all over the place. Not only is it just the companies themselves, but like through Kickstarters and stuff like that, you can read good comics everywhere. And I think that's awesome, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, we'll look forward to doing some sort of end of the year coverage. We always like doing that and always try doing something different. So let us know what you want to see with that. What type of end of the year coverage you would want to see. All right, let's get into Mike. You want to talk about the Five Nights at Freddy connection in the Marvel universe? Didn't know that was gonna happen.
The only thing I wanted to say was just like, what the heck? How is that even going to happen? Like, I can't even begin to fathom that. Like, it has nothing to do with Disney. So I don't even get how they would even begin to come up with a connection there, unless the creator got with Marvel and said, hey, let's collaborate and do something, right? So is it Scott Cawthon, I think is his name, is the creator of Five Nights at Freddy. It's the only thing. Listen, whatever it is that they're going to do, I need to read it. I have to figure this out. And you know, my son is going to want to read this too, because he's like a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan. So
it's also Ryan Stegman doing the art.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's even better too. So I am on board with it. I'm clueless on how and why.
I hope it brings people to the playground for sure. Tevia says favorite movies, video games, and comics would be fun. I think we just stick to the comics. I will say for the newsletter segment, I'll do top 10 movies because I see a lot of movies, but we've done that before. We're like, let's do TV, comic. It's like, no, we just stick to the comics on this one. We have Storms who says, I like to see end of the year coverage on alt covers, how much they were marked for and price differences after being on the market after X months, especially for the books that are not significant. I think that's more of a Mike category than a me and Brant category, but that
even
could be
that is like
a lot.
Yeah. You would have to do the amount of research you would have to figure out when it comes.
That's a journalist's job. That's like get paid for an
article
job.
When it comes to the price of covers and alternate covers, and then what they go for now, and it just that's way too much. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where I just do my top 10 comic book covers of the week, and then you know, at the end of the year, whoever won the particular group, so we'll have a finalist at the end of the year. And that's about the extent I go for. I don't go that deep into this like spec when it comes to covers.
We're not spec market.
I like the art. I collect it and like it for the art, not for the for the price of it, or if it's going to be worth money.
Yeah. same.
I think what we'll end up doing is kind of more of like our favorite comics of the year, things that we thought like really stood out, maybe books that we felt like other people should be reading. Were there any cool characters introduced? I think, back in the day, we used to do an award show. We're not doing that because it takes too much effort. Then we did an article, and then that also took too much effort. So, and our schedules have gotten too crazy for it. But I think we would do more of a free form version of all of that, what we did in the past, which is like, we're just going to kind of have conversations with a bit of research in the regard of, we'll look at our favorite comics. That way we know what our favorite comics are. But I think it's going to be more of a free form conversation. Maybe questions from you guys and be like, oh, well, like, why wasn't Nightwing on your list? And we'll talk that way. So I think probably what we're planning on doing.
I think it could be interesting to see, like, if we all kept track of it. I don't know if we all did, but like what our top picks were throughout the year, and if we still are reading those books and that kind of thing too.
I have them in iPad.
I do too.
So that could be interesting. And I do think some have changed, and it's also interesting to look at like something like Nightwing, where that was our favorite book when it originally came out, and now I don't think it's hit my top 5 in a while.
It's been a while. Yeah,
that'll be an interesting conversation. So look forward to that. That's gonna be cool. All right, let's move on to some. Let's see. There's a lot of Marvel news that actually came out this time around, but I'm also saving like the big comic industry news for last. But let's talk about Ms. Marvel getting a new miniseries. My complaints about the female miniseries of Marvel. I think they don't treat these female characters correctly. I don't think they should be miniseries. If you're gonna have the same creative team, just make it an ongoing book. It's literally the same creative team. It's the same exact story.
It is.
I understand when you get issue 10, right? Then you're like, okay, that's a lot. But like 5 issues and then you're gonna restart it.
It was only 4 this time too. Yeah.
4.
I feel like what Marvel and DC are doing, they're trying to copy what the indie market is doing.
Exactly.
That's what they're really trying to do. So it's Ms. Marvel, blah blah blah. And then the story ends, and then it's Ms. Marvel again. And so I feel like they're gearing more and more towards that.
I mean, I'm doing the same thing with my series.
Sure.
So I can't really say
smart
anything.
Business-wise.
But yeah, exactly. And it's you get new readers every number 1 issue. We talked about this. It does make business sense, but it is a little frustrating when, like with She-Hulk, when we talked about a few weeks ago, it continues, like you said, Kat, the exact same story. And there's no, like, now if this one's structured differently and it feels like a completely different jumping on point, that's a little better, I think.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating when big characters like that don't have an ongoing series. It's like, it probably should. Spider-Gwen's another one. Yeah.
Especially because Ms. Marvel, and no spoilers for Marvels, but they are gearing her up to be such a big character for the MCU. And it's just like, and she's such a beloved character. She's like kind of like a rare character that's a newer character, luckily a diverse character that everyone agrees on. Everyone loves Ms. Marvel. Like it's amazing. And I Kamala is such a great character, and I wish that more people, like, I wish Marvel would give a chance to these books. And also, I like and dislike that it's so focused on the MCU aspect, because I love that the actor is writing it, and I think it's so cool that she's a part of that and like a part of creating the character. But then also, like, if you're gonna start a new miniseries, I kind of want another voice. I kind of want someone else to do in like a whole different direction. Because I do agree with Steve's comment. I thought the miniseries was just okay. I do think it was better than that previous ongoing book, but it's also not the most memorable thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So. Did you like it as much as I'm trying to think of a great Ms. Marvel run besides G. Willow Wilson's, but I think it's the best we've gotten since G. Willow Wilson. I don't know if that's saying much.
I feel like if you're going to get a long run in a comic, it's going to be the creator of that character. And then from there on out, you're just going to get miniseries. And that's just unfortunately the way it is. I just, going back to the whole numbering thing, that's all done and over with. I think at this point, you're going to get whoever's writing that character is going to tell their definitive story. And once their run is over, then you get the new team and then it starts over. But like you said, Kat, there's no difference. There's no change on that team. No. So why does it need to be renumbered? Right. And it was the same thing like She-Hulk, like you mentioned there too. And the one thing that you guys were discussing was like there was a lot of elements in that She-Hulk issue 1, right? Or what were you talking about?
Well, issue 2 was the Hulk one, yeah.
Yeah, issue 2, where it was like there was no editor's notes, right? Like you had that female evil She-Hulk person in there, and there's no editor's notes on who that person was. It wasn't, hey, check out last volume of She-Hulk, right? There was nothing there, so you were automatically supposed to pick up where the story was. So you're trying to make it new reader friendly, but you're having this random person show up that you should know, but you never give any indication on who that character was to begin with.
And I think what's interesting about that issue in particular, as a She-Hulk fan, as someone who was reading Rainbow's Run, I actually think that was the strongest issue in such a long time. It was like, oh, cool, Hulk's here. They're back. It feels like it's building towards something. And I genuinely enjoyed that issue. But then, like, as a new reader, you're like, what?
Exactly.
That's so crazy.
For an issue 2, absolutely.
Yeah. It's very interesting, but obviously sales are important. I know many people really, really care about the renumbering. I don't actually care that much. I'm like, do whatever you want, but
I don't have a problem with renumbering to issue 1. Ever since they started putting legacy numbering on books, at least they're recognizing how many issues of that character there is. I'm fine with renumbering the stuff. I've gotten over that a long time ago, and I understand why they do it. It's just they're just following the route of an indie style book these days.
I agree. So let's go into some more Marvel news. We're going to talk about Spider-Gwen getting a giant size special. It literally goes into the conversation we were just talking about, where it's like Spider-Gwen obviously deserves her own series and ongoing, but I am happy we're getting more Spider-Gwen, and I'm actually really excited for this run. It goes back to the music stuff, which I'm very interested in, but also Melissa Flores, who is currently writing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and doing a great job on it, is writing it. So like, I'm very excited for this.
I love the writing on Power Rangers. Dead Lucky for me is still decent. It's not the best in the Massiverse, but it's still decent. I love the band stuff too, and we don't get to visit that often with Spider-Gwen, so I'm excited for it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not too much to say about this. Whenever she has a series that comes out, I'll always try it. Will I stay on it? That's a completely different story.
Right.
But with this giant size, I like that old giant size, style of comics. And I'm sure they'll make it in that way that it's like old school giant size. They'll try at least anyway. So it's cool, man. I'm excited for it.
Tevye did not like the Shadow Clones one. I thought that was not like the best run ever, but I thought it was actually one of the better ones. Yeah, it was fine.
It was better, yeah.
I actually thought that was solid enough. Okay, going into the last Marvel news, I think, which is Jackpot and Black Cat getting their own series in March. I'm sure it's a mini series, but yeah, this is great. Although one big thing, Jed McKay's not writing it.
That was the first thing that
different.
I checked. Definitely was the first thing I checked, and I'm like, I'm a little disappointed in that. Of course, I'm going to read it though. It's like a gimme, but I don't know if we'll get the same exact, character interactions or funny quips between the characters. So I don't know. We'll see. But of course, between those two characters, you have to read it.
That book could have blank pages and I'll still read it.
Absolutely.
Just for the covers alone. No, I mean, I think it's honestly, these books sell, and I'm glad that Marvel's finally seeing it and allowing MJ to do her thing, allowing Black Cat to do her thing. People love these characters and they love them being friends. Like, it is so fun and so refreshing. And I'm so stoked for this book. And I know that Jackpot has her own one-shot coming out too. So there's a lot of Mary Jane stuff to look forward to. Yeah,
it's interesting. The writer that's doing this Black Cat Mary Jane story is the one doing Jackpot as well. And
interesting.
She's a Degrassi writer of all things.
Interesting.
Interesting.
So Canadian.
Very
Most
Canadian.
Likely, yeah. Let's get into the next thing here, which is I'm going to save the Dan Slott thing for after. I want to like talk. This is now more like industry talk. So we have Daniel Noah and Elijah Wood making their own imprint at Oni. Yeah. Right? Because Oni, let's go back in time for a second. Oni almost like shut its doors. They fired everybody. And now they're like, well, now we're going to try getting these media rights because we need money. And Elijah Wood, I don't know. This is interesting.
It's very interesting. Like I read recently, like Lionforge kind of separated out of Oni Press again because they had absorbed them, right? Or like they had what do you call it, merged. So I was like, okay, this is weird. And then this news came out, and it's like Elijah Wood is making some comics. That's, I mean, you know, he's a geeky dude too. So I mean, it kind of makes sense. It's in his wheelhouse, but. It's a weird time in comics. There's so many imprints. This article actually mentions all these different imprints at all these different companies right now. They're springing up like wildfire. It's just nuts.
I thought Oni was already like done.
Me too. I really did think it shut its doors, but we'll mention the Scott Pilgrim thing that people are mentioning in the comments. Right. But going back to the imprints, it's interesting because there's some that are really trying to get out there. A big example, and I don't know if you'd call it an imprint, but it's a new company, is Distillery. They are really pushing in those two retailers. Like I'm always seeing every issue of these new distilleries at the store, but I don't think I care. It's just too much.
Ever since that sampler book, I have not bought anything from them.
And they're so big. They're the magazine size. I hate buying those.
I don't like that.
And there's nothing that caught my interest. There's nothing. A lot of these imprint stories it's visuals first and not really like, look at this character, look how awesome they are. And we could give the examples of Don't Worry, Kill Your Darlings. I was gonna say Don't Worry, Darling, which is a movie. Kill Your Darlings, those and even if you go to Noctera, which kind of started this all, that had character first. And because now we're kind of oversaturating the market, it's hard to even know like, oh, should I get this? Should I get this? And it's like, well, James Tynion has 10 different books. Do you buy them all? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is definitely a lot. We do have the question for Mike Manhattan. Have you guys seen Scott Pilgrim Takes Off? I actually did because I did not have plans on watching it, but Phil, my business partner, watched it and he's like, oh, Kat, I think you'd like this. It's like, I don't really like the movie and I don't really read the comics. Why do you think I'll like it? It's like, oh, just watch it. And there's a twist in the show that makes it different from the movie, which I really think I didn't make me a Scott Pilgrim fan, but I appreciated the show because it shows how to do an adaptation and shows that you do not need to copy and paste the comic. You can do something different and improve on the comic, especially something that came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, I've heard that. What's that?
What is
it's on Netflix.
Netflix.
I've heard it's a little polarizing, whatever that change is. I haven't watched it, so I don't know. I love the movie. I've never read the comics, but I did see a clip of the cartoon, and I'm like, man, that actually looks like something I would watch. So
it's short too. It's very short. That's why I just watched it while I was like doing work. So it was very easy to watch. It's fun. If you like anime, you'll probably like it. But maybe that's why Oni's coming from the woodworks, because that it was an Oni Press comic, so maybe they got some money from that and they're doing something. We have gotten the Ivan Reis question a few times, so let's talk about that next. Ivan Reis is leaving DC and goes back to this whole idea of everyone's doing an indie comic, everyone's doing their own thing, and Ivan Reis is on that train.
It's a shame. Again, because it shows you don't have to work for the big two anymore to make good comics. So
and more importantly, to make money.
And so, but it's like when you lose a big time artist though, like that in your company, that's huge. He is a phenomenal artist. For example, like Beast World. Week. I mean, it's so great, and I think he did Blackest Night too. So,
and that book was made because of his art. That book was not been as decent if it wasn't for his art.
Absolutely. I mean,
that probably indicates where he's going to, but go ahead.
Right. So now he's going to he's doing the Jeff Johns thing.
Ghost Machine,
Yeah. So I mean, that makes perfect sense. And good for him. I mean, listen, it all started back in the day with, we said it tons of times before, but with Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and all of that. I feel like those guys they opened the door for, independent creators out there. and then more and more people have done it. And you know, it is a shame though, because I feel like, you know, when it comes to Marvel and DC, it's going to get harder and harder to get people to, you know, do their comics. And instead of being, oh, in order to, you know, start your career, you need to do Marvel and DC. I don't know, man. It's just,
Look at
I don't
Daniel
know.
Warren Johnson. So again, he has
It
done
used
the
to
Marvel
be-
and DC, but didn't make him big.
Yeah.
Everything else did.
But it's like,
Yeah.
I should have reversed what I said. It used to be you want to go work at
Right.
Marvel and DC,
Right,
right?
right.
Now it's almost the other way around. It's like, oh, well, if I start in comics, maybe I'll start at Marvel and DC, and maybe then
It's so
people recognize
strange.
my art, and
Yeah.
then I'll go and I'll do this somewhere else. So it's kind of weird how things have changed now.
It's so strange how the whole industry has changed. And like you said, the importance of
Since COVID.
working. Yeah, exactly. But the importance of working in a Marvel and DC, like you said, is not like, for a lot of people, that's not the end goal. And that's
Yeah.
just so crazy when you think about, you know, years past, that was the ultimate goal. And,
The only goal
you know,
for a lot of people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
But they
Especially
want
as an
credit
artist,
for
I'm
their
sure.
they want credit, and they want the money that they deserve
yeah,
for their designs and their creations and
Absolutely.
their work. And it shows you, honestly, again, it goes back to Todd McFarlane, how ahead of the industry that he was. Like, he wanted
Yeah.
credit for the work that he did. And
Or it's more history repeats, right? It
Yeah.
shows that like everything that has happened will always happen again. And as it's happening in a bigger
way.
force.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really think COVID proved a lot. And you would think, oh, you know, it's because COVID happened. But no, it's truly the comic book industry shut down. And I think a lot of creators are like, oh, I can't pay my bills because Marvel and DC has decided not to do, or not even Marvel and DC, really, it was Diamond decided we can't do this for 3 months.
Mhm.
What do I do? And
Right.
they're like, well, I could do my own thing. I could do a
Yeah.
Kickstarter. I could do a webtoon. And that really started it all. They were like, oh, okay. I could do a lot. And oh, wait, I'm making all this money too now. And then obviously
Yeah.
Substack changed so much. And I know Substack maybe, I don't know if it was successful or not, but it changed a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing. We can debate for, you know, a week how if it was successful or not, but the fact of the matter is it did change so much because they swooped in at the right exact moment and were like, yeah, we're gonna offer you all this money. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay. And now it's, you know, we're seeing the I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but anyway, we're seeing what happened out of that.
The ripple effects. For
Steve,
sure.
Yeah.
Steve said here in this comment, I don't think big money is with Marvel and DC.
No,
So
it's not.
no, that's true. But if you go back, and before there was Image in all of the other companies, the only place you could go was DC and Marvel. So you would have to accept what you got paid back then. And being that there were such large companies, obviously they probably made a lot more money back then. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm not the you know, the CFO of the companies, obviously, but it was probably glamorous to obviously draw or write for those companies. But as more and more companies have come out, yeah, the money is in other places.
Look at
Especially if you
Transformers.
yeah, especially if you can write your own stuff. Again, if it goes out and becomes a big movie or a show, there is your payday. And a lot of people are, you know, a lot of people are, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get their creations out there on, you know, on shows and TV. It's not just only for comics either.
And mostly, you know, I know like 10 years ago when Mark Millar was doing it, and we'll talk about the Mark Millar thing, like it was like almost like whispers in the comic stores, like, can you believe he did that? He went to TV. But you also have to understand the drastic money change that's in television and comics. If you sell your comic to a TV show, that's life-changing money for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the dream of a comic creator is not to always be a hobby. It's to be sustainable and
It's to have a
be able
business.
to have a business, to be able to continue doing what you're passionate doing.
Right.
That's kind of the whole thing. So if you can get those kind of things, TV, games, whatever, all the better. and more power to you.
Because then you get to do the things you want too. Because
Exactly.
a lot of comics is hustling. It's a lot of like, okay, where's my next paycheck? And for a lot of creators, it's like, well, I don't want to know what my next paycheck is. I want to do the thing I want to do and make it as big as it's possible. Because then, you know, that in the TV shows and all that really helps. You could make a lot of money doing that and be like, okay, cool, I could do whatever I want. Okay, there's a couple of questions here. I could answer the big question of, is the comic book industry dying? We could talk about it in a second. And is the Substack dead? Substack's definitely not dead. I just think it's different. No. You know, they're not offering the little barrels of money they were offering to creators, but almost every creator who was on Substack and kind of joined that, like Scott Snyder, James Tynion, they're still using it, and they're utilizing it to a point where they don't use their social media anymore. Yeah. Those newsletters are all they do, because it's just a different avenue to talk to their fans. You know, we use newsletters all the time. I was just talking about my newsletter is extremely important to my business. So newsletters and Substack are important. Is the comic book industry ending? No, I think honestly it's thriving. It's actually, creators are making the most money they've ever made in comics right now.
Yeah.
And actually can make a living.
Yeah. And we talk about it all the time. It's like and Mike said it earlier in the show, you can get comics literally from everywhere now. And it's not just like, okay, you've got Marvel and DC, and then, you know, a handful of like smaller companies. It's like all over the place, whether it's webcomics, whether it's Kickstarter, whether it's all these imprints popping up, whether it's Boom and IDW. Well, maybe not IDW as much anymore, but you know what I'm saying? It's just, I think like Kat said, it's thriving and it's growing and it's bringing more people in.
Right. So the point I want to make is, so at one point in this world, back in the day, all we had was Marvel and DC. So all the sales went to Marvel and DC, correct? So now we have all these different companies and we have so many comics. So all that money is being spread out. Now, I'm not saying comics are selling as much as maybe they once were, because if you go back to the days of the 70s and the 80s, even the early 90s, before we had major motion pictures with superheroes in it, video games that immerse your world into it, your escape was a comic book back then.
But question mark, is the graphic novel selling more than the floppies did back then? Because we know about the millions of comics that were sold back then, but how much is like a Lore Olympus and a Walking Dead selling?
Yeah,
people are just reading it differently.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point, because back then you weren't guaranteed a trade for everything.
Sure. That's so true. Maybe those singles were selling more, like the 1 million copies. But I really would be curious how much Walking Dead has sold since like the first show. Yeah, I do also want to mention this, because I think this is a really interesting question. Tevye says, why the business jargon and why not create just for the sake of creating?
Hand in hand.
My best example is, if you go to open up a restaurant, you love to cook. But if you're not making money at that restaurant, you will be homeless. Yeah, and you can't cook.
Except at home. Yeah.
Except at home, if you have one.
You don't want to work for free. I mean, yes, you may love what you do, but you need to make money, right? You need to thrive. I'm a tennis instructor. I've played tennis my entire life, and I love to do it. But if I don't get paid money to do it, right?
No one's teaching tennis.
I'm not going to teach it. I'll teach it to my kids. That's about it. But I got to get paid money. I got to feed the family. It's just, it's the way it goes,
That's why I hate, like, especially in the creative world, the term sellout, because you have to, like you both said, you have to make money. You have to make money, or you can't continue doing the thing. And unless you're content with it being this little hobby that you do on the side, and you have something else and you're fine with that. Most people they want to do the thing they love all the time and be able to live on it. That's not selling out, and that's not business jargon. That's just monetizing your passion.
And when it
Right.
comes to comics, there's business jargon because it is a business.
True. Yeah.
Right? Like why people talk about like what's making money, what's not making money is because if it doesn't make money, it's not going to be made anymore. It's like the movie business.
True.
Why do we talk about the box office and why do people not like? I feel like people don't care when it's like, oh, look at all those $1 million of that movie made. They're just like, oh, well, why didn't it make more millions of dollars? But if a comic creator makes $100, they're like, why did they do that? They should be creating for free. First Watch Studios says also depends on what you define as a comic book industry. Yeah, there's a lot of people that make comics just for a hobby, and that's great, and that's totally, that's just as good as making money in comics, and does not weigh, if your comic's good or not.
Right.
It all depends on what your goals are.
Yeah,
exactly.
So let's get into the next thing here. More business jargon, but I want to talk about Mark Millar moving to Dark Horse because that was huge.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Move. Yeah.
It's so wild to me how he moves to Dark Horse. And does that help Dark Horse? Yeah, man, absolutely.
Of course.
It does for sure. Because it's question. Like, as soon as he puts out a comic, am I going to buy that comic? Yeah. And but he said he's always had a passion for that company, which is interesting. So
I'm guessing Hellboy. I think it was mentioned. I think Hellboy was mentioned there because that's like the biggest thing you could think of that comes for Dark Horse. And I guess you have the Comixology originals that kind of help them a little bit. I want to say that there was like 1 or 2 James Tynion books. Brian Michael Bendis does his books there. So like I get it. But I think about Dark Horse 2 years ago, everyone thought it was gonna die because of Star Wars and all that.
Exactly that. Yeah, when they lost Star Wars, everybody was like, "Oh, gloom and doom." And then Alien and Predator, they lost that as well, and they had that forever. But it's an interesting move, and I know Mark is a polarizing individual. We won't go into all that, but and I don't know what the story is and why he decided to go there instead of and staying at Image, but.
Like what was bad about Image?
Attention.
Because Image Comics, like you keep all your rights, you keep all the money. So I think very interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's some kind of like maybe hidden agenda that we don't know. Maybe because he's such a big name that he feels like
they courted him a little bit. Maybe
because of me, I'm gonna bring this company back.
Oh, okay. There she is.
It's me, but just no, I'm stepping away for a second. Hold on.
Okay.
I feel like he's going to be the one that feels like I'm going to be the one to save this company.
Yeah, I mean it's quite possible.
I think so. I mean, I was going to say, I wonder what is the big thing right now from Dark Horse. Was it like are the Comixology originals doing well? Lock and Key was IDW. Someone said that Umbrella Academy, Lock and Key were huge for Dark Horse. Yeah, IDW was Lock and Key.
Yeah, they did have Umbrella Academy, and I think they're doing some Star Wars stuff again. But for years,
the Adventure they did like the cartoony stuff, right?
Maybe they got that back after IDW lost it. I don't remember. I know there's something that they're doing. I just can't remember what it was. But it was always Alien and Predator and stuff like that, Terminator, things like that they did.
Right.
I know they have Usagi Yojimbo, which occasionally comes out.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't even get released very often.
Hellboy is probably their other bigger thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
But I think it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. He's already got Nemesis again on his radar, coming out based off of that article, because we saw in Big Game how Nemesis is like, oh yeah, I'm coming back. No, his earbuds.
Oh no. I hear it, so that's good. What about Invincible? What about it? It's over.
About it? It's done. It's finished.
Nothing's gonna change there. Bendis moved to Dark Horse. Yeah, that was one of the bigger deals for sure.
I missed the past couple of minutes of y'all's conversation.
You didn't miss very much.
Okay.
There was a question about what about Invincible, and we said what about it? There's a show. All right, last thing we're going to talk about here is the Dan Slott. This was really interesting to me. Is doing an exclusive deal again with Marvel. And the reason it's interesting is that everyone is moving on to create our own books. And I don't think Dan Slott is, and maybe he has made a create our own book and it was like 20 years ago, but in recent years has not made a create our own book and has really been one of the only loyal people to the big two. And it's just super interesting that he just loves writing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's what his passion is. And he is super interesting to me. Because like obviously think about when he was writing Spider-Man, he's at the height of his career, and then he wrote Fantastic Four and Iron Man, and you know that not as many people read it. Even Silver Surfer was kind of the height of his career because it won a lot of Eisners, and then he went back to Spider-Man, and everyone's talking about Dan Slott again. So I don't know. I'm curious why he's never kind of went to just do a create our own book, but the exclusive, there's not many exclusive deals ever at Marvel and DC anymore. So just seeing all these other people drop out and then Dan Slott kind of continuing that. Is there any other writer that's exclusive to Marvel? I don't know.
Nah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but I just think he's happy where he's at and he's happy writing Spider-Man. I really, truly think that.
And that's cool. That's cool because we talked.
Yeah, if he likes that, you're right,
yeah.
Brent.
Yeah, it's we talked about earlier. It depends on what your goals are. And if his goal was always to write Spider-Man, then you know he's already achieved it. And why not ride that wave as long as you possibly can? So
I agree.
It is interesting.
For sure. Very interesting in this climate. All right, well, that's all the news. We're going to jump into, neither of us have Kickstarters right now. So we are just going to jump into, don't worry, next week I will, but it's very short. We're going to jump into some comics.
All right, let me switch it over to the list. So with the comics, it's going to lead into our main topic. So the first book is The Amazing Spider-Man Gang War First Strike Issue 1. So all of us are really hesitant about this event and how this book was going to turn out. And I can say I really enjoyed this book. There was a lot more than I ever expected in this opening issue. And we
had such a low hope. So it really, anything can happen. You're like, wow, but not saying that did happen in this book. There's actually some great stuff, but it's like we're always so anticipating that nothing's going to happen. So when something does happen, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, the twist was really good. And I honestly did not see that coming. No. You know, I did not see Madame Masque being the one step ahead of Hammerhead out of all things, you know? Yeah. And
did you know she was the girlfriend? It wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't even thinking about her.
Yeah. Because she was taken out.
Yeah, and you never see her face usually. So it's just like, you don't, I just didn't think about it. I was just like, I literally thought she's like, oh, she's just a random girl. And they played it so well. And then the art was so good. You're like, oh man, she's such a badass. And then obviously like the main point of our topic is she going to be the Kingpin, because like having a female Kingpin could be really cool. And she's controlling it all. She's starting this all.
Yeah, she's pulling all the strings. Yeah.
And it all started with the wedding. Like she was the one that hired the shotgun guy to kill Tombstone and hired the girl to be a lookalike, to be like Madame Masque, and because just to obviously anticipate what was going to happen. I mean, it was actually a brilliant plan. I think Madame Masque could make a pretty cool Kingpin, as smart as she was right there. And I feel like she hasn't been really relevant in comics all that much as of late. So I think it's really, I think it's a great idea if it does go to that point. But the opening issue to this was just, it was brilliant, man. And like you said, I was like, who is this dumb girl with Hammerhead, you know? And when she pulls out that pipe, I was like, oh, damn. I'm like, what is she doing to him? I'm like, what is this pipe made of? And then they like explained it, because I'm like, he's Hammerhead. I'm like, what the heck? Then I'll go one step here. I thought this was actually going to happen. I thought Janice was actually going to kill Randy, because I really thought if they took it to that point where she killed him, that would have been dark. If you did that and basically kicked Hammerhead's ass, I'm like, that would have been the perfect comic book. But she pulled back on it, you know. But I thought overall it was a lot of fun.
Well, also you have the Randy situation. It progressed really well. It made the gang war feel important. The art was really good. It was just pleasantly surprising. Where I'm like, wow, I actually had a good time. Tizzy actually has an interesting question. I don't usually read Spider-Man, but I want to read the event. I read this issue and was so lost. Do I need to read the ones before this one? That's interesting because I don't think the ones before this is going to help. I think what is sad about this event is that you need to be a big Spider-Man fan for your whole life to understand what's going on. There's so many players that you just need history of Spider-Man to understand. I guess that is a shame because if you didn't know who Madame Masque was, this issue would not be that interesting. Or not, she's not even a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah, or not even necessarily Spider-Man, but like the street level,
the Marvel Universe
of Marvel Universe. Yeah.
I mean,
because
I would
Hammerhead
say,
and Kingpin and Tombstone, they're all Spider-Man. But
I would say that you would have to read at least that wedding issue, the 925 issue, because that really kicks everything off.
That's true.
Yeah,
because that's where the Beatles stuff happened as well. She's a big player in this.
That's where
I know the basic
shot and everything else. But yeah, I thought it was just an awesome issue. Great start to it. What did you guys think of Miles harping down on Peter, though?
That was my least favorite part. Yeah, that was a little boring to me.
I mean, I didn't mind it. I thought him getting wake-up calls in the midst of all this, especially, it was kind of echoing the way we felt about Peter lately, where he's just, kind of, his focus isn't right. So I felt like it was the readers speaking to Peter through Miles and through was it Robbie that also talked to him? He had a couple of people. He had a couple of people kind of, put him in his place a little bit. So I didn't mind that. I didn't have a problem with it.
I mean, I was like on the fence, right? I was like, I get what they were trying to do, but at the same time, I'm so over people like shitting on him at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Because I thought we were over that. That whole thing has been, it's done, right? And it's like it kind of rehashes a little bit, but I understand where it was coming from because I guess Peter and Miles haven't connected since this whole thing has happened. So it's fine. It's okay. But the overall grand scheme of things is pretty good, and I'm very curious to see where it definitely goes from here.
Me too. Well. I read it and I was like, oh, I wonder how Brant and Mike are gonna feel about it.
Oh, I loved it.
I did too.
It just reminded me so much of like just a Spider-Man comic, Yeah.
And like you said, Kat, I think some of it is that we had so low expectations for this event that it is just exciting to see something fun and more something more complex, more layers going on and everything. So hopefully it continues that way. Hopefully it's not just a one and then it's goes back to the way it has been. But yes, if this is the way that the event is going to be, then I'm actually excited for this. So.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm actually really Spider-Man excited this week.
Yeah, we get Spider-Man this week. Yeah. So
I saw preview pages of it.
No, it's John
Romita Jr. Yeah, that's a little. We'll see. That I'm not as excited for, but honestly, I can almost look past it if it's a good story. I'm like, if the story continues to be good,
but it's just like you love that artwork. Like, it's really how badass did Madame Masque look when she was like smashing the freaking pipe on his head?
Imagine John Romita Jr. with that.
Right, and the terror in Robbie's or Randy's eyes, and the hurtfulness in Janice's eyes when she was trying to kill him at first. Like, that's the stuff that he just doesn't do anymore. He doesn't do that. You don't get that emotion, and that's what makes you get so emotionally invested in these comics is when you see these characters' faces and stuff like that. And his is just doesn't do it for me, man.
Yeah, I know.
Definitely the blockiness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We did have a comment from Tizzy who said, I love Spider-Woman and Miles, so that's why I wanted to read it. We'll talk about Spider-Woman, but you don't need to read this to understand what's going on. Spider-Woman, in my opinion. Miles, I'm not sure because I don't read it, but
not this issue at least, because it was all about Blade.
Well, there you go. It has nothing to do with it then.
I hated this issue. I was like, please let's just get this over with.
Yeah, it's over now, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's done.
I feel bad for the whole Blade situation because they're obviously promoting him so much for a movie that might not happen.
I mean, his main series, that series that's going on right now, is good, but that in this Miles story, it's like, ugh.
It's a mini. Is it like a mini? It's not connected to his ongoing, or what? What is it?
No,
it was
it's
just
not.
Okay.
it was just a little mini arc where
Yeah.
they were fighting vampires together for a little bit.
Interesting.
So it's pointless, really.
What's
All
the
right,
point
so
of
let's
gang
talk.
war?
What's that?
Chevy said, "What's the point of gang war?" Hopefully to do something, right?
It's kind of in the name. I mean,
Right?
Yeah.
It's a mob war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't even mention the old gang war in this issue, about when they were talking about to Janice about, you weren't around in the original gang war or whatever it was. So they did mention it in there.
Also, like, I love a good gang war. I love the nitty gritty. I think there's so much cool character stuff you can do. Like, I like a good gang war. And honestly, it's not done very often. Like, when's the last gang war we got? Honestly, if you could, the last I would maybe consider as a somewhat gang war was Shadow War. And that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah. And the original gang war was done in what, the early 80s?
Yeah, so they don't do it very often. And I like that. I want to see things that aren't repetitive.
Right. All right, so let's talk about the other big book this week. It didn't have any tie-ins released or anything like that, but you had Titans Beast World issue 1. I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was great. We talked about it earlier. The artwork was phenomenal. Yeah. It's written by Tom Taylor. However, it's very familiar. It's very Deceased like. And that's that's kind of like, as much as I like Deceased, and you guys know that, like, I feel like that's when he writes his best. And there's great emotional moments in this comic, which I really also appreciate. It seems very cookie cutter to me. And the one concern that I have about this book was that random villain at the end, the dark Dr. Fate guy named Dr. Hate. Yeah. And he just shows up out of nowhere. And now Beast Boy is just a Starro, where all the little Starros are taking over everybody else on Earth. And it's just like, we've seen that before, everyone getting infected and all that other stuff. The only thing that puts a kind of a twist in this as of right now is like, how do we defeat Beast Boy without killing him? Because he's obviously a threat right now.
I thought Beast Boy was a really interesting thread. I think it took a little while to get there, but then also an interesting thread is them just being the new Justice League. Like, I like that, but it's so hard because I don't love Titans, and I'm just like, oh man, is this good to continue Titans? I don't know. The art's good. It's like, it's good, but it's not great, and it's just like, I'm so torn on this event. I'll read some of the tie-ins because I'm interested to see how, like, Dreamer is going to be infected in the Metropolis book, or I'm obviously very excited for Gotham, but I like the idea of the settings. But I don't know how to feel about Titans as a whole. That's where I'm kind of at reading this.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, real quick. It just left me really unsure at the end of the issue, because it started off very explosive, in your face. Like, it just was moving at a mile a minute. It was like, oh, we got this Necro Star and we got to stop him. He came from this thing and we got to go to here. Okay, I got to transform into Starro. I got to do all this. I got to defeat the creature. We defeated the creature. This is dark. It was so much. And then all of a sudden now it's like, where are we going to go with this? And that's what I'm concerned about.
As far as Dr. Hate goes, I like the mystery aspect of it because he took the helmet off. We didn't get to see who it was, but Beast Boy recognized him. So I'm really curious to see who this character actually is, and how that plays into this whole thing. And I know, like, Amanda Waller has a one shot coming out soon. I don't remember if that's tomorrow or if it's the week after.
Don't remember either. It's soon though.
Yeah, and I think she's like on another side of it, and she's pulling strings here and there and doing her own twisted thing as usual. So I don't know. I actually really enjoyed this. I had told Kat last week that this was going to be the telltale if I continue with Titans, and now I kind of feel like, at least for now, I'm going to. But I have the same hesitancy because I haven't been loving Titans.
Right.
But I really love this issue. I thought this was like a perfect way to kick off an event, and all that both of you said, it was exciting. It was, bombastic. It was fast paced. It was action heavy. Yeah, we've seen the, elements of it before, but it's done in a different way, different enough to keep me intrigued and keep me wanting to see like what's going to happen to Beast Boy. What's going to happen? Who's this Dr. Hate character? How is this going to affect the entire DC universe? And it's, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it overall until I read more of it. But this issue, if it's, again, like Gang War, if it's all like this, then I'm on board. So
who knew that 2 events coming out from DC and Marvel, and we're all like, yeah, they're both solid. First of all, just thinking one event solid is enough, where I'm like, wow, I liked an event.
Yeah.
Then 2 events, you're like, wow, that never happens ever. I don't remember last time DC and Marvel launching an event on the same week. They were both good,
I'm so curious. Like, I told myself I'm only going to buy the main series of this.
You said it in the group too,
stuff. And I just don't know if I should try out, them or not.
I think you should pick and choose and not get all of them. That's what I always do.
Yep.
Like Gang War, good examples. Like I'm getting Luke Cage. I like Luke, but I'm not getting Daredevil. Beast World, I am reading Superman, so I kind of want to see where Metropolis goes. Right. I love Batman, so I'm going to read Gotham. Am I going to read, the Flash one? Probably not. So I think it just depends on what you like. And because it's hard, because sometimes a tie-in can be so bad, and then the next one is a 5-star book. So it's hard to determine.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, it's like I'm buying all of those. The only one I can say that I'm truly not looking for, Shang-Chi. Yeah. Like he just seems like the biggest oddball out of that whole thing.
It's so weird, yeah.
But it's just like, what the hell, dude? But then I wasn't really excited about Luke Cage, and we'll talk about that one too in a little bit.
I read a little bit of the last Shang-Chi series, and I guess I kind of remembered that he was part of that whole 5 rings thing now. So I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but it's so weird to see him sitting at the table with all the villains. It's just like, what?
He just didn't he seem like the oddball and all that?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I'm not as interested in Shang-Chi, which it's a shame, because like the movie was good and I think he's a cool character, but not for this event, and I don't know. It's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on then. Let's talk about our number 5.
I think. Yeah.
Yep. Kat, go ahead.
Mine was Spider-Woman, issue 1. I was actually a little surprised it was a tad bit lower. I thought this was going to be higher on the top 5. But I think the Gang War stuff was not as interesting in this tie-in compared to Spider-Woman stuff. Like, I really like the idea that Jerry's gone and no one knows about him, and Spider-Woman's on this mission. The artwork's good. I really liked her interaction with Carol. It's a solid issue. I just expected to love it, and I just liked it.
I really liked it. I don't know. I just enjoyed it. I thought that the Gang War stuff was less interesting. I agree with that. I like her story, and I wish that it was just her story. But at the same time, I did feel like the Gang War stuff felt organic. It felt like it made sense. The way it tied in, and her connection to Hydra, and obviously that's the first place she'd go when her baby's missing, because they're always messing with her. And the fact that Diamondback was working with Hydra and he's part of this whole Gang War thing, it just made sense. And
obviously the art is really, really good for this book.
I am a little biased towards Corolla Briley's art. There are reasons, but yeah. So I like the art in the book as well. I'm curious.
I was not as into this book maybe as you guys were.
Yeah.
I just, compared to the other Gang War books,
compared to I thought you were gonna say compared to the other Spider-Woman volumes.
Oh, no. Well, yeah. Well, I like the other Spider-Woman volumes better for an issue 1, at least. And I don't like when a new series starts off in an event. And we went through this before, I think, with Dennis Hopeless series, right? I think that's what happened when his series was
It started,
out.
it started with an event,
Yeah.
which was,
Yeah.
it started off on like a pirate ship, I think. And I'm like,
And
where's this
I
going?
wasn't a fan of that either.
Yeah.
So I just don't like when new series start off that way. And even though like it had the connection to Gang War, it wasn't as strong as the other ones. I did appreciate the other stuff though that went into the story with her trying to find her baby and all that other stuff, but it just wasn't as strong for me. And not doesn't mean that it was a poor book. It wasn't a poor book. It just wasn't in my top 5. That's all.
Yeah. No, I understand that.
All right. And so Brent, what was yours?
I think it was Local Man. Surprisingly.
Oh, that's so interesting because that is my lowest book of the week.
Oh wow.
I really like my top 4, and everything below that is kind of in the middle.
Right.
So it's really weird. Like I liked all my books this week, but my top 4 are the ones I really liked, and then 5 I was like I was going back and forth with a couple.
I didn't like that drug trip. That was so weird.
That was weird, and him mistaking the text of a donut for something else was a little graphic. But other than that, I thought this was a better issue than we've gotten since it returned. Well, it's only been 1 issue, but I guess, and like the end of the last arc as well. It felt a little more interesting to me. We get a little more. The flip side story was like her trying to make a difference in her town. I thought that was fun. And just them kind of skirting around this whole thing, and then like the cop having his own agenda and all this stuff. I thought it was a little bit more interesting and a little less. I don't know. The last issue was a little boring for me, so I thought this one picked up a little bit. I guess.
I feel like this arc in general has been not the strongest.
True.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I still like the book, and I'll continue seeing where it goes. But yeah, I didn't love this issue.
All right. My number 5 was, I forgot already. Gang War Luke Cage.
See, I didn't like that one as well.
So, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I thought I'm in the middle of both all you guys because I'm like, I thought it was a fine enough issue to see where it goes.
I was bored.
So I liked it. I thought it was better than, I think, because I had such really low expectations for it. And I think I had higher expectations for Spider-Woman. So I think that's kind of what happened there.
Gotcha.
But I like how Luke Cage was like, I'm done being a freaking paper pusher. I want to go out there and fight again. And he's recruiting Cloak and Dagger. And I thought that was very interesting to me. And freaking All-Star Smite, the Spider Slayer, is back. I was like totally excited to see him because,
of course you like it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been dead since Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about this book too is that it feels like it's the most connected to Gang War. It makes sense that this book exists.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of Mayor Luke Cage just because I feel like, the paper pushing stuff is not as interesting. But yeah, when he went into the streets, I'm like, this is. And I thought the writer got Luke Cage's voice really well. I think there's always a weird line where it's like, oh man, like how the language, like how do you capture Luke Cage's voice? And I like the way he was written here, felt like him. So, and yeah, I like the ending. I again, it just gave me enough. Did it blow my mind? No, but it was fun.
It was a fun comic. It actually reminded me almost of a like older 80s comic or something of that sort. That's what I liked about it. And that Danny Rand was in there too.
Yeah, that may be what I didn't like about it. I don't know. I actually like the first half of the book better than the second half.
That's so interesting. I like the second half more.
Yeah. I was bored by the second half. I don't know why. I just was. I was like,
that's so funny.
It was a slog to get through it for me.
So yeah, we'll see what the direction goes with that one though too. So I think there was a comment in there that said that they enjoyed this one more than Spider-Woman also.
Yeah.
So
is Spider-Woman ongoing or is it a mini series? Because that's I think a big determinant.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I don't know. I think it might be an ongoing. If
I
it is,
thought.
yeah.
I really
So.
couldn't get. I mean, if it's a mini, then I'm just like, oh yeah, where is that going? But if it's an ongoing, it's like, yeah, it's like the Dennis Hopeless thing, where it's like they'll
I
just
could
go a
see it
different
being a
direction.
mini though. I could.
I will say I don't know if Corolla's going to be on it long term,
Mm,
because I think she had mentioned to me that she had one more issue
got ya.
to work on that, because she's working on my wife's book. So,
Hmm.
yeah, she told me she had to finish one more issue of Spider-Woman, then she could do some work for us. But so I don't know if she's just doing the Gang War stuff, in other words. So
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. It feels like a mini series to me. And then
Yeah. Kate
Cage, I
says
knew
it's a mini.
was.
yeah,
Steve said it's a mini series.
Well, Luke Cage, I knew was. It was more Spider
Oh.
yeah,
Woman. I wasn't sure. Yeah,
right.
Spider
Luke
Woman. I
Cage.
think it was.
Mm,
Yeah, I think from what I heard, it was. What's it called? I think it was definitely
or mini.
a mini. Yeah.
See what
Um.
happens.
Here it was. Tevia said, question, how's All-Star Smythe came back to life? It was referenced in the book that he came back during Clone Conspiracy. I mean, that makes sense, right? I mean,
Yeah,
everyone
right.
came back during that point.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there's that. All right. So let's move on to, we talked about Spider-Woman. Kat, you read Alan Scott. So
I
what
did.
you think?
Quickly. I don't think it was as good as issue 1.
Mhm.
I think I really like the queer narrative of issue 1. I think it was a good blend of seeing the romance, but seeing like how he became Green Lantern. And then you have this cliffhanger that there's a Red Lantern around. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then this issue is about being in a conversion camp, and I'm like, who wants to read that? And it's just like a really sad story about him being gay and not wanting to be gay. Well, I guess not allowing to be gay, and like everyone around him's also getting hurt. I'm like, who are you trying to please with this book? It just felt really weird. It just wasn't. It was, and then the Red Lantern stuff didn't bleed in until the end. I did not like it very much, and I hope the next issue is better.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I read like a few pages of it right before the show, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to finish this. So, but that's the part I was at, was where he was just at the conversion camp, and I was like,
the whole issue.
It's the whole issue like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Until the end, until he sees like this person who I think is trans. I don't remember, is either a trans person or someone who's expressing their gender different, expressing their gender, and they die. Like his roommate dies, and I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, the one that was in the
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm like, oh my. It was a really dark issue.
Yeah.
That kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it felt very heavy just the few pages I read. It's like, man, this went a different direction than I was expecting.
And again, the Red Lantern stuff doesn't really show up until the end. Like, I'll continue to read it. I just think it was an off issue 2, and hopefully issue 3 will be better.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So now we're going to talk about Edenwood, and
you guys read that.
Brant and myself read this book, and holy shit, is this book all over the place.
Yeah, thank you. I was feeling like maybe Mike loved this and I'm the only one, but there so many transitions and so many time periods, and you have no idea when or where anything is taking place,
or who is what,
or who is what, and who is who. I was like, I don't know. Like, it starts off, it's like 1777, 3 years ago, and then you're like seeing modern people and everything. And I know time works differently in the forest and all that stuff, but they don't like tell you anything.
There's no logic. There's no. You're like supposed to understand who all these people are, all these different characters. They changed over the years.
Yeah.
Who's good, who's bad, what's real, what's fake. Like, oh my gosh, this book was just, and my the guy that works at the comic shop told me and said, you might want to reread issue number 1. So I'm like, I took that as a warning. And so what I did is, I made that the very last comic book I read. And I read everything up, I think, by Sunday. And I was like, I was waiting on this one. So I read it today in my car, in the car line, no interruptions whatsoever. Just me, silence in the comic book, and I was still completely lost by this thing.
Yeah.
So are you guys getting issue 3? That's the question.
I don't think so. The thing is the
really
book is gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
Tony S.
remember the art
Daniel.
being good.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh,
He
it's
writes
a
it too, though,
gorgeous
right?
book.
Yes,
He's writing
he does.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
So,
just
I mean, it's only been one issue, and he gets separated from all his friends, and you're supposed to remember all his friends' names and recognize them when they've aged several years. And it's supposed to be like this surprise, like this character Lexington is one of his friends, and she's grown up, because she aged differently than he did,
and he's
only been there for 3 months, and it's been like several years for her, and you're supposed to recognize her and know who she is and know how connected they are, and it's like, who is that again? If you
and
didn't
he's
read
like
issue
10
one.
years old.
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness,
And then they're fighting chickens with heads cut off, and
and that was like several pages worth.
Yeah, and there's like one kid, and then there's this one chick that's licking blood off her hands, and then there's
chicken blood,
yeah, and then there's some random demons in this demon queen, and you're just like, and she's talking with, and it's just like, she's like, you don't know who you can trust or who is real and who's fake and who's the, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's so disappointing to me too, because I looked forward to this book so much, and I was so excited for this, and now I'm like, yeah, I might drop this.
oh my God, tell me about it. I really, in issue 1 there was a lot to read, but you got enough to get the gist of it, and then all of a sudden it's like he was the demon guy, and then all of a sudden you're thrusted into this world, and I'm like, first of all, it threw me for a loop when it said it's 1777, 3 years ago. I'm like, what?
Right.
I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that's the only time indication you ever get in the entire issue.
Yeah, so I think I probably will be done. I think. We'll see.
That is understandable.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. I think I've got a question there from Space Case Cards. He says, so I'm late to the stream again. What books have you discussed? So far we talked about Amazing Spider-Man, Gang War. We talked about Beast World, Titans Beast World, Spider-Woman issue 1. We talked about Alan Scott Green Lantern issue 2, Edenwood issue 2.
Local Man.
And now we're headed on to our number 4s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Brant, what was your number 4?
My number 4 was Miss Marvel. So I really
have been liking it.
Yeah, I really like this series, and I thought this one ended really strong, and I actually did a review of this one today, of the whole miniseries, and I felt like this issue in particular was a little bit of a love letter to everything that had come before, I thought. And I thought it paid homage to a lot of stuff that came before and kind of paved the way for the future going ahead. And so I'm excited about the new series. But go ahead. I know you got thoughts.
No. I almost felt neutral about it. Like it just, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It felt forgotten to me. This whole arc feels forgotten. Maybe because it did tie into X-Men so heavily.
Yeah.
I miss other elements of Miss Marvel.
I agree.
Jersey City. I love the friendly neighborhood aspect of the character. I miss her other supporting cast members. We saw Zoe and Nakia, I think, for a panel in this whole entire series, and I miss them. It's just an okay series for me. It's not bad, but it's not good, and I wish I loved it.
It's like the first 2 issues I was kind of neutral on. Issue 3 I thought was better, and then this one, because it referenced all that stuff, and it just felt like, again, it was tapping into that a little bit, and with the same creative team on it going forward, it gives me hope that maybe we're going to see more of that bleed back in. So I don't know.
I hope so.
But I enjoyed it.
I feel like this mini was necessary because they had to show that she's a mutant. So I'm hoping the next one is just show me Miss Marvel
not so
being
heavily
Miss Marvel.
Focused on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems really forced because it was.
There's a comment on here. It says, I wish I had time just to settle down and grab a cup of cocoa and rest by the chimney reading a comic by candlelight. Man, this sounds cozy. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are doing
what
that
I
right
admire
now.
about you, that you read your books and tell me about them. Well, we appreciate it. I
Yeah.
can tell you that I read my comic books half of the time in a vehicle or on a kitchen counter or in my bed. And it's constantly, hey, dad, or hun, I need this, or I need this. And how about that? And so it's never peaceful. But we appreciate the kind comment, though. I'm glad we could definitely help you, have a discussion about comic books.
I wish that our experience with comics was that romantic towards our comics. No.
Cat reads them all in one day.
Yeah, I read them all in one day on my couch. And also same thing, telling everybody to stop bothering me. It's like, I just want to read and it's known that Wednesdays is my day, and still somehow I'm interrupted each and every time.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I literally buy my comic books, shoot my haul in the car. I go home and I make myself lunch. I bring my lunch in the car so I can go actually eat in the car, go pick up my daughter. And in the meantime, I'm editing the video in my car. I make it live, and then I start reading the new #1 issues all in that time frame. I mean, that's how rushed it is. It's absolutely insane. The dedication that I have towards this is insane, but I just love it. I love doing it,
Yeah. I'm a little different because I don't read them right away, but I find myself like binging them the next like the 3 days right before the show.
Which is probably better that you read them probably the closest to the show to remember that.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes I read them so fast, it's like I don't remember them. So.
Yeah. I have to read for each individual video.
Right.
That's obviously how I geared it towards.
Right.
Here's another question. It says, let's see. Hey guys, anyone else besides me really into Wolverine vs. Predator? I actually am reading,
you're reading it.
Yeah, Mike is.
Yeah, the second issue was really good. And the third issue, though, for me, not as good because the art wasn't as solid in this one. But it's pretty good. It's better actually than I thought it was going to be. So it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if it's worth the $6 an issue though. It's not. I think in everybody's price point, but story wise, it's not bad. It's better than I anticipated.
I've just never been a Predator fan.
Me either.
No, I could totally understand that. All right, so that was who's number?
I don't even know what book we were talking about. Miss Marvel was Brant's book.
Yeah, that was my number 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Kat, what was your number 4?
I was actually surprised by this one. Amazon's Attack issue 2. I'm just kind of having fun with a book that's connected to Wonder Woman and feels like it's warranted. With a tie-in, I want to see something that the main series doesn't have time for, and this is it. You get to see Wonder Girl, you get to see Mary Marvel, Nubia. Is it a mind-blowing book? No, but it's a fun book, and it's just cool to see these characters together dealing with the events of Wonder Woman and everything feeling connected with solid art.
I agree with that. I wish there was a little bit more in this issue because it was all
action.
Yeah, I mean, you could read this in like 3 minutes. It's just boom, 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 boom. So I wish there was a little bit more, but I do like the pairing of these characters, and I like that they're being featured somewhere. And I really like Mary Marvel. I like Yara Flora. I like Nubia. The other, I can't ever think of her name. The leader of the Bonham Doll or whatever. I don't like her as much just because she's always mad. But,
and we don't know her as much. Like the other three have been featured very prominently over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but I definitely like the book. I wish this issue had a little bit more meat to it for me.
Yeah. But read it if you're enjoying Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I will say that if you're not too invested in Wonder Woman and you're just reading the flagship because you're like, oh, it's fine. I don't think you need it. I honestly am just picking it up because I like Mary Marvel, and it's the same writer who wrote the last one.
I like Yara Flora as well, so it's for both of those for me. But.
All right, cool. My number 4 was actually X-Men Blue Origins.
I heard there's a there was a big moment in this one with Mystique.
Yeah, did you not?
Yeah.
You didn't read this.
Oh, you
did
didn't
you?
read it?
No, but I know what happened. I know that.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, she's
So
not the mother, she's the
supposedly,
father.
yeah, and
Yeah,
supposedly, like
yeah.
people are saying she might
This
be
is the retcon.
trans.
This is like a true retcon.
Yeah.
Like Azazel is not the father of Nightcrawler. It's now technically Mystique.
Destiny.
And
Oh, I guess Mystique.
yeah, because we also find out that not only like you always thought, okay, she can just change her skin or just her
Mhm.
appearance, but she can change other things.
She can
as
change
well.
her complete genetic code.
Yeah,
But that makes sense to that character. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure
think
people
about it.
are. I'm sure there's commentary about the issue,
Oh,
but
of
like I think
course.
that's cool. Like that's an awesome layer to add to the character.
Right.
agree.
And I think it's great. I just think it adds a whole other dynamic to her. And it kind of makes sense for her to, I guess, impregnate Destiny because they had a relationship. And it's all about their early relationship, their affair. Like she was originally married to some dude and she was having having an affair with Azazel, but she actually wound up getting pregnant. She wound up getting pregnant with Destiny, and it was this whole thing. And it was Xavier who wiped the memories away from everything that happened.
At their request, yeah.
At their request,
Get rid of the pain.
And correct. And then based off of what happened at the gala, the most recent one, her memories got all scrambled up. And so she was seeing pieces of everything that had happened. And then Nightcrawler just made her see the true vision again on who Nightcrawler actually is and everything. So it's actually a really good issue. I actually read this twice because there's a lot that goes into this book.
Mm.
And
it's a bigger issue too. I'm guessing it was like was it double size or was it just a regular sized issue?
I think it was probably like 40 pages or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. But it's a really good book. I think like you should, if there's a back issue, you should probably go read it.
It sounds interesting. I mean, look, I enjoyed Uncanny Spider-Man, so I'm sure it's the same writer. It's really cool what they've been doing with Nightcrawler. There's besides like, let's think Black Cat, like because they had the same writer for such a long time, they actually add layers and continuity, and that character changed over the years for the better, in my opinion. And then because Cy Spurrier, I think is how you pronounce his last name, has been writing Nightcrawler for like, I want to say 5 years at this point. That character has changed so much in a cool way. Like it feels every series he's in, there's something different happening with him. And it makes sense because the previous arc developed that. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And everything I read is like, this was the origin they wanted to tell, like back in the 90s. And they got a lot of blowback for it back then. So
that's cool. I mean, not cool that happened. That's cool that they were able to retell it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think now we go on. Well, we talked about Miles Morales. So I don't think we need to talk about that book.
No.
I'm surprised. So the Flash issue 3, you guys are still both reading this. So.
I'm done after this.
I was almost done after 2, and now I'm done. This one killed it. Yeah.
It's hard because it's not a bad book, and that's why I continue to read it. It's like, oh, it's cool that there's this horror element, but it's just not as good as the Jeremy Adams book. I don't really understand everything that's going on. It's very dense. I don't really feel like it's very character driven. And if you read Jay Garrick, it's such, for me personally, in my personal likes, it's a better book. It's the better Flash book, in my opinion.
I agree. And it's like, I felt like Wally in this issue, and you'll get this cat where all these people are explaining all this sciencey stuff, and Wally's like, so spooky Speed Force stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's where I'm at with this, because all this is going right over my head. Which if you're a science nerd and you get all these terms and everything, that's great. It's not for me. But when you're writing a book like The Flash, and everything from the dialogue to the art to the actual story is slowing everything down to a crawl, it's a disconnect for me. It doesn't gel with the character for me. So
I'm glad we both gave it the 3-issue try, but no, I don't think any of us are going to continue reading Flash.
All right. Well, all right. So let's move on. Let's talk about Firepower. Firepower has been that book that's been, really dragging. They've been fighting this dragon, which seems like forever. You had a very emotional last issue with issue 28, where the grandfather actually dies. I thought that was a gut punch, and that's something
That
that
was a
we
good
haven't
issue.
seen in this book in a while. You find out the grandmother's still alive here, and it looks like they're going to have to do again more battling against their dragon. This is the penultimate issue, and we finally see the snake guy winds up dying and turning to ash, and the one guy that couldn't produce firepower finally finds the secret on how to produce it and what it's driven by, and it's driven by fear. So
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting, and you get to see him finally produce a fireball at the end of it.
Yeah.
So what do you think that means going into this final issue?
I don't know. I think that's what's so interesting about this series is that I could not tell you what this last issue is going to be about. Like, I just
Yeah.
don't know what the epilogue's going to be. But I like this issue. I thought actually it was really well balanced. You have good art. You have good action, but it's not just action because you do
Yeah.
get the ramifications of the grandfather. And obviously you get a little plot progression with the mythos. But yeah, I thought it was a really solid penultimate issue for the series. It is. I think we always had higher expectations for this book, where it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, this is gonna be so great, and we're
Well,
gonna
it
see all these
started off
character
so
developments.
good, though.
Oh, yeah, it did.
That was the thing. Like, he came out with a trade paperback to tell this whole story
Yeah.
of everything, and it started off so good, and just for some reason, once that dragon was released from the door, it was just like, that's it. It just became this
It
standstill.
became
of a
Dragon
story.
Ball Z.
Yeah, very
One
Dragon
long
Ball
fight
Z.
scene. Yeah,
Hopefully they stick
it's
the landing though.
yeah, and it's like with that character at the end with the fear, and the rest of the family kind of tapping into love, and it was like, oh man, if this wasn't ending here, you could totally see a Green Lantern thing going where this guy could
Yeah.
become Sinestro. He's tapped into another side of this thing, but then it's ending, and it's like one more issue. It's like, well, how they how they going to end that? Then it's just like, oh, we've got one more firepower, so now we can really defeat the dragon, I guess. But I do agree this was a stronger issue than like a bunch in the middle there that were just like action. And there were a lot of elements to this with the grandfather, and with having to say goodbye to peanut butter again and all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm really curious to see how it's going to end though.
Same.
Time will tell. All right, let's move on to number 3. What do you got, Kat, for number 3?
Mine's Green Arrow, issue 6. This was supposed to be the ending of Green Arrow, but then they extended 12 issues, and you could see that this was going to be the ending of Green Arrow, where Green Arrow, because Green Arrow gets saved, everyone's happy, and they're like, wait, let's have Arsenal now get lost. And I'm like, all right, that could be interesting. But I liked it. I had a good time with it. I think this book has been interesting because I always thought this was going to be like my favorite book coming out every month. And it just ended up being a solid book. I didn't love it, but I obviously didn't hate it. Like, I like this book a lot. I just thought this was going to be like my favorite Green Arrow book ever. And it wasn't that, but.
Totally agree.
Same.
Yeah.
We'll see where the rest goes.
I like it. I just feel like all the universe jumping stuff is just something that it's kind of gotten old for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't, I'm not big on that. And it's just like, do I want to see like other versions of other characters when we see so much of that these days, know? And that's what's been kind of the turnoff for me. Like, I just want a simplistic Green Arrow story. It's all I want. It doesn't have to be this big universal jumping 50,000 green arrows. I've gone here, gone there. I do like the reunion at the end. I think the artwork is really good in this book, and I'm curious to see the direction. And don't get me wrong, I still like it. It's just not as good as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
I think we're all agreed on that, and I would love like it to continue and just now be based at home with all the characters together and go on the next journey or whatever. That's what I would like to see. But
it's kind of like that what that first issue had, right? Where it was like everybody was together. Only Ollie himself wasn't there, but you had everybody else. And I remember seeing the entire family, and I was like, man, this is cool. I really like that. So I want all of them together. That's what I want.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. We're going to move on to Brant, your number 3.
My number 3 was Spider-Woman. So we already talked
Gotcha.
about it.
My number 3 is Titans Beast World. So it's my number 3. All right. So we just talked about Green Arrow. We talked about Luke Cage. We talked about Local Man. So we're going to just dive on to number 2. And I'll just start with myself because nobody else reads it currently. And mine was Something is Killing the Children, issue 35. And it was funny because that was my number 1 most anticipated last week. And it delivered at number 2. And it was really good. It was the end of a story arc. And I don't want to spoil anything, but just what happens to Erica in this issue is just absolutely brutal. And then there's a supporting cast member in this arc that something happens, and it's just insane, dude. And I don't know when the book is coming back because obviously it's taking a break, right? And
it's also writing a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And it leaves you on this huge cliffhanger, and it will just be like, the continuation of the story. But my God, I loved the book. It was very, very good.
I gotta get that second trade.
Yeah, man. You just
I gotta read that first trade.
Yeah.
I have the first trade too. I bought it. I just haven't read it.
Yeah.
You'll read pretty quickly through it.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick read.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first volume was
I got it signed by James Tynion too. I got it at FlameCon. I bought it and I was like, I'm gonna read this one day, and just like Stray Dogs, it's just there. I'll never read it.
Good, man.
I couldn't put it down once I started reading it. And I was like,
yeah,
this is actually really good.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to be as good as it was for me. So
it is. I know a lot of people fell off of it, but this book was also a big spec book for a lot of people because of issue 1, and just like I think people just fell off of it. But this arc in general was very much more of a Erica Slaughter story of getting to know her on who she was when she was a little girl, and she actually has emotion, and she's not this monster killer, So that's what I liked about this story also.
Nice.
All right. So with that being said, now we will go to Kat for your number 2.
Mine's Firepower. We already talked about it. I was pleasantly surprised by this issue.
What about you, Brent?
Mine's Beast World. So I already talked about it.
Okay. And then just let's see. I guess with that, we'll just dive into number 1. So
Spider-Man?
Hey.
I think we all picked Spider-Man. Yeah, me too.
Yep.
There we go.
We
were all pleasantly surprised.
That's the first time I think in a very long time that
Who
Spider-Man.
would have thought? Yeah, right.
Honestly, probably since the Craven stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm happy. Hopefully it keeps up. Definitely.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right. So let's go on now to Brant, who's going to give us, we're going to talk about that most anticipated.
Yeah. So all our 2 and 1s are the same books, just in different order. So let's talk about it.
It was a harder week. There's books that there's like the obvious ones, and that's kind of it tomorrow. So
yeah. So let's talk about yours, Kat, first.
Mine is Beast World, the number 3, right?
Yeah,
the Beast World Metropolis.
Right.
I picked it because I want to see the Dreamer story. I'm interested to see what that's going to take, and also just to see what these tie-ins are all about. In another week, I don't think this would be my most anticipated, but I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
I'm curious about this one too. Like you said earlier, it's the Superman family is what I'm interested in here, and
Superman's been great, the flagship. So
yeah, exactly. So I want to see how that.
I think it's written by Joshua Williamson, or is it?
I was going to say who's writing it.
I want to say it's Joshua Williamson, but let's see.
I think it might be multiple writers, and I think he's definitely one of them.
That's always fun. Steve Orlando is writing it. Nicole Maines, which makes sense. And that's it, actually. It's just Nicole Maines and Steve Orlando.
Oh, okay.
So is it 2 separate stories then?
I think it's just one. I think it's just Supergirl and Dreamer teaming up. So I don't think it's actually an anthology. I think it's
So-
Supergirl, Dreamer, and John, and they're going up against Flamebird, which I'm curious if it's the Flamebird from the what's his face from the one that the character that become two people in one,
Oh yeah,
Storm,
yeah.
Firestorm. I'm curious if it's
Yeah.
going to be the same Flamebird from that. I really like that character, so it is one story.
Yeah, so I mean that kind of makes sense. They're both known for those two characters, Dreamer and
Mm.
Supergirl. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. All right, so Mike, let's talk about yours then. Sacrificers.
Yeah, just the continuation of Sacrificers. We found out what that drink is, which is
Yeah.
at this point it's like the brains from the kids. And so it's the kids' brains liquefied, and then what happens is it makes the gods young. It gives them youth. And the daughter of the leader of all gods finds this out. And then I forgot, she went to go on, where did she go?
Oh man, I don't
She
remember.
disappeared, right?
That book comes out so often, but also feels like it doesn't come out often enough. Like there was the last two issues came out back to back, like in 2 weeks, and now I don't remember the last time that issue came out.
Right.
I don't remember.
Right.
But she
And
went
there's
out
a lot of
like
mythology.
she
she
left.
left somewhere.
Yeah, to go somewhere. I don't know,
Yeah, I
to
can't
figure
remember.
out what was going on or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, that was the issue there. But
Right.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. We found out that the dad is just, he got wasted, and you know he obviously is mourning his son. He misses his son, and he
That was really good.
Like
Yeah.
very emotional part in that book. But definitely looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah. And then mine is the Sentry. Just
That
because
was close for me. I was really curious about that.
I'm really curious about it, and I want to see who this new, if they tell us in the first issue, who the new Sentry is going to be. Yeah, probably not, but I'm still so intrigued by this. It's like, I don't know.
I think we're going to
It's a
see a
blank
bunch of
slate.
people. I think we're going to see a bunch of people get those powers, and they're going to eliminate it. You know, people are going to be eliminated, and then eventually it will lead into the new century.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Transformers. Transformers #3. That's on all our lists.
Last issue was so good, and
Yeah,
it's just
it
like
was.
I always try to avoid putting Transformers on my list because I know you guys are gonna pick it. But this was the type of week where it's just like it's so obviously Transformers that you have to put it on. But yeah, no, it's like it moves so well. I like that you just don't know what the next issue is gonna bring. It's hard to even predict what this issue is gonna be about.
Yeah.
My biggest thing is, how is Carly going to react when she found out that Starscream killed her dad?
Right.
Yeah.
That is what I want to see. Like, I want to see like her revenge towards the Decepticons and her truly joining the Autobots at this point. And what other twists and turns are they going to add to this book? You know?
Yeah.
It's so curious on that.
It's just, if you've read any Transformers, anybody watching this, and you're like, nah, I don't need it. This is different. This is something completely different. And
very different.
It's really good though. Great solid start so far. So, and then finally, The Amazing Spider-Man, #39.
I mean, our pick of the week kind of determined that
one.
It was a good book. I want to see where it goes.
We talked about it earlier. I mean, the only reservation I have is the art in it. I don't think the story, I think the story hopefully continues very well. It's off to a great start, but again, it's the art that might hold it back. The only thing I can say is, after all this time that John Romita Jr. had off, I'm sure he was doing the art for this book.
Sure.
And so maybe he took extra time to make it as good as he possibly could.
I don't remember the last issue he did for Amazing
It's been a
Spider-Man.
while.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit. Yeah.
Because Gleason did a lot. Like a lot for Spider-Man. So.
Right. So you look at Gleason, he did Gleason did it, and then he had Ed McGuinness, who did the last 3 issues. Gleason did the Kraven Last Hunt issues, right? So that's 5 in itself, right? So it's been a while, man.
Actually, let's see.
While you're
Or
looking
unless
that
you're
up.
looking up. Yeah.
No, while you're looking that up, somebody asked who
Okay.
the writer on the Sentry is. It's somebody I'm not familiar with their work. Jason Liu.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them either. If
Interesting.
I had a guess from the, let's see. Wow, when is the last time? It's been a really long time because I'm looking at it, something that came out in October. It was not Ramita Jr. I think it was issue 26 might have been the last one.
Wow. That
Yeah,
was a
I think
long
that was the
time.
last one, and that was in.
That was right
That
after
came
the
in-
death of Miss Marvel, right?
That was the death of Miss Marvel. That
Yeah.
issue. That was
Really?
May.
It's been that long.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I might not looked at all of them, but yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. I'm actually almost certain that was the last issue
That's crazy.
because he's done
I-
covers. I'm seeing some of these
Yeah.
covers here, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
didn't do
yeah, yeah.
interiors.
I didn't realize it'd been quite that long.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been nice. And again, nothing against him as a person or his art. It's just not my
It's just-
particular style.
Exactly.
It's just I don't think it fits like the Spider-Man comic book. I think it
Yeah.
fits an
Kick
indie book.
ass. Yeah.
Kick ass, exactly.
Mhm.
Like
It does
that
fit
works
that.
for it. Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, is that it? We're
That's
done?
it.
That's it. Yeah.
We
We
are
all
done.
had this very similar
Yeah.
most of
Very
the
short
time.
conversation this time.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, guys. So thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you enjoyed our top 5, the comic book news and the most anticipated. And we should be back next week unless something else happens. But hopefully all
I'm
three
getting
of
my
us will
wisdom
be
tooth
back
pulled out on Friday, so we'll see.
Oh.
We'll see how that goes next week. But hopefully all 3 of us will be here.
Yeah.
We should be fine by then.
absolutely.
You'll be
I think so. I'm getting it surgically removed, so that's going to
Yeah.
be fun. But
Yeah.
I think I'll be okay. I think the weekend will be good enough.
okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. So as always, make sure you subscribe to Comic Book Weekly and Comic Book Corner 2.0. Make sure you hit that bell for notifications. And of course, give us a thumbs up. Follow us on all the social medias, guys. We're there sometimes. You know, Brant does a good job of posting it on Instagram. So, guys, have a great night. Happy new comic book day, and we will see you